Citroen's avant-garde Ds5 is the most versatile, the most powerful and the cleverest of the French brand's desirable range of sporting DS models. Bringing together elements of everything modern family motorists seem to like, crossover, coupe, family hatchback and sports estate, it's an intriguing package that really does seem to offer something just that little bit different if you're about to opt for just another Mondeo-sized medium-range model or German compact executive saloon. A different spirit. The meaning of those two iconic letters is the meaning too of the brand they represent. Today, the DS range defines what a Citroen should be, just as it did back in 1955, when the first car to wear this legendary badge was launched to an adoring throng at the Paris Motor Show. It was futuristic, it was innovative, and it stood apart from the mainstream, as does its modern-day successor, this car, Citroen's Ds5. And never was the brand in greater need of such a different spirit. Sales of conventional hatches and saloons, particularly larger ones, have suffered across all the mainstream makers, as SUVs, MPVs and most recently Qashqai-like crossover models have flooded the market and offered family buyers a more interesting alternative to yet another Mondeo or Insignia. And that's what this Ds5 also is. Classy, cultured and beautifully appointed, it aims to bring a slice of French couture to the company car park. And doesn't it need just that, living as we do in an age where most business buyers seem to think that the classiest next step away from mainstream Mondeo ownership is to buy yet another BMW 3 Series, Audi A4 or Mercedes C-Class? Not very imaginative, is it? At last, though, the mainstream makers are fighting back, and in very different ways. Ford, for example, uses Mondeo underpinnings to bring us the crossover Kuga. Volkswagen uses the Passat to bring us the four-door coupe CC. And Citroen? Well, in this Ds5, we've something in between these two kinds of car. In its dramatic, eye-catching line, some will see shades of SUV, while for others the shape will seem sleek and sporty. Everyone will have an opinion, but what will yours be? Let's set you on the road to some answers. So, what's it like? Well, there's a high-set driving position and the contradictory feeling of being snug and coupe-like, thanks to the enveloping dash and the towering centre console. Press the start button and the dials spring into life as ambient light bathes a cockpit illuminated by shades of red and white. It's all very pleasing, suggestive of the automotive experience that you hope might follow. But what kind of experience is that likely to be? Well, if you're new to this car, then like me, you'll probably be approaching it without much idea of what to expect. Will it be a luxury liner in the style of the C5, the C6 and large Citroens of the past? Or will you be served up a DS style package of taut road holding and pin sharp handling? In the event, you get the impression that the French brand's own engineers couldn't quite make up their mind. So what you actually get is really neither one thing nor the other. Perhaps that's as it should be. It's hard to imagine too many 3 Series or Audi A4 customers defecting to this car if it handled like a C5. But by the same token, hot hatch handling would be somehow inappropriate to this Ds5's luxury demeanour. That's something that's poorly served by the jiggly ride that this model delivers up over bad services, and it gets even worse if your car has the large alloy wheels that I've got specified here. That'll be a bit of a shock to the relatively few owners who'll consider trying this car, having enjoyed the magic carpet ride that's such a feature of Citroen's C5. But then that model sits on a big car platform with all the technology that'll give you. This one, in all forms other than this top hybrid version, rides on underpinnings originally developed for little Focus-sized family hatchbacks like Peugeot's 308 and Citroen's C4 with their rudimentary torsion beam suspension. Now, to be fair, that's not so much of a problem on major routes where this car is a relaxing and really very pleasant travelling companion. It's not out of its depth on twisty stuff either. Where although the steering doesn't give you much feedback, there's plenty of grip and less body roll than the highest driving position might lead you to expect. Under the bonnet lie some of the cleverest and most efficient engines the PSA Group can currently offer in its compact and medium range models. Most sales will be garnered by a couple of 2-litre HDI diesels at the foot of the range, developing either 110 or 160 brake horsepower. The feeblest of these two really is for the frugally focused, with efficient eHDI technology compensating for a leisurely 12-second 0-60 sprint time on the way to a top speed of 190 miles an hour. The 160 brake horsepower HDI diesel, though, is usefully quicker, getting from rest to 60 in just 8.5 seconds on the way to a top speed of 134 miles an hour. And that's about as quick as the THP 200 petrol model, a vehicle that's much pricier to buy and a lot more expensive to run, which is why hardly any British buyers will consider it. Better, they might think, to try something a bit different, like the clever Hybrid 4 variant that I'm driving here. Now, this combines a 2-litre HDI 163 brake horsepower diesel engine driving the front wheels with a 37 brake horsepower electric motor powering those at the rear, making this, in theory at least, a 4-wheel drive machine. Like virtually all hybrids, this one comes only with an automatic gearbox, and in this case the 6-speed EGS system that's already used in more conventional eHDI diesel models across Citroen's lineup. It also has a set of steering wheel paddles should you wish to take control yourself. Now, the EGS auto gearbox is rather jerky in some of Citroen's other models, but less so here, thanks to the way that the electric motor fills in the gaps in the engine's power delivery. It still isn't quite as smooth, though, as the dual-clutch automatic gearboxes that you get in some more conventional rivals. Talking of power delivery, with a combined 200 brake horsepower output and a combined 450 newton meters of torque pulling power, 200 newton meters of that from the electric motor, you'll be expecting this particular DS5 to be, well, pretty rapid. But if you are, then you'll be failing to take account of the 150 kilogram weight penalty that all the batteries and the associated hybrid features carry with them. That's equivalent to the weight of a couple of extra passengers, and it explains why this hybrid DS5 is effectively no quicker than an HDI 160 diesel variant with 40 brake horsepower less. Rest to 60 in this Hybrid 4 occupies 8.3 seconds on the way to a top speed of 131 miles an hour. You'll need to be in sport mode with its quick gear shifts and active four-wheel drive assistance to be going this quickly. This one of 4 driving settings selectable from the circular controller down here, where the handbrake would normally be, were that function not taken care of by this rather fiddly electronic handbrake button. Now, Sport is one of 4 different driving modes that you can select from the controller. There's also four-wheel drive, which gives you extra traction for poor conditions. ZEV, which gives you all-electric, zero-emission vehicle motoring for low-carbon urban driving. And also Auto, which you'll probably leave it in most of the time because it'll sort everything out for you depending on the prevailing conditions. Whichever of the 4 options you choose, you can easily monitor which wheels are being driven and how they're being powered by reference to options selectable on screens. There's one to the right of the speedo, there's one in the middle of the dash that show you the state of play at any given time. So that you can also see whether you're driving eco-consciously and how you're charging the batteries. There's a power meter situated to the left of the speedometer where the rev counter would normally be. Now, it's got 3 main bands: power when you're accelerating, eco when you're driving more carefully, and charge when you're either braking or cruising and charging the batteries. It's all very high tech, but somehow it suits the character of this car. Back in 1955, when the original Diesse was launched, those two letters were a play on the French word Diesse, or goddess. They designated automotive beauty, again delivered here in a form that Citroen describes as moving sculpture. That balance between fluidity and tension, compactness and space, efficiency, boldness and elegance. It's all there in striking harmony across a beautifully styled design that seems to change shape depending on the angle from which you approach it. From the potent rear diffuser with its glinting twin quadrilateral tailpipes, to the charismatic double chevron front grille and the chromium plated lightsabers that flow from the headlights up to the A-pillars, it makes its own unique statement. Something along the lines of, are you really going to want to drive a dull German compact executive saloon when you could have one of these? Under the skin, given that the DS3 is based on a Citroen C3 and that the DS4 is closely related to a C4, you might expect this DS5 to be C5 flavoured, but you'd be wrong. It's hard to imagine anyone creating something sporting out of the soft, springy luxury liner that is the C5, and Citroen rather wisely hasn't bothered to try. So instead, this DS5 rides on a stretched version of the C4 platform, which means that most DS5 models share the relatively ordinary torsion beam suspension arrangement common to that relatively ordinary class of car. What isn't in any way ordinary is the hybrid 4 powertrain fitted to the flagship DS5, the one I'm trying here. Though you might not think that if all you did was to glance beneath the bonnet, where this variant has the same 2-litre HDI diesel engine that you'll find fitted further down the range. No, it's at the back where things are different, the normal rear axle being replaced by one that packages in an electric motor driving the rear wheels. Front and rear communicate electronically, depending on the traction needed, and power switches seamlessly between engine and electric motor as required. So much for the technology. What about more tactile pleasures? Well, you'll find plenty of them inside, where the interior is even more avant-garde than the bodywork. Everything's based around the concept of what Citroen calls radical luxury, and it's certainly very different from the commonplace conventional cabins you'll find on most other cars in this price bracket. It's very driver-centric too, with a standard head-up display that rises onto a pane of glass that sits at the bottom part of the inside of the windscreen so that you don't have to take your eyes off the road. Someone's really thought about the inside of this car, and they've not felt themselves to be constrained by convention in creating it, with a wraparound dashboard, aircraft-style overhead switchgear, an analogue clock, square instrumentation, and a novel 3-part panoramic glass roof, each section featuring its own overhead blind. Garnishing it all are metal surfaces, trimmed and honed by NAS, the company that creates the same thing for Bentley and Aston Martin. And this finish appears everywhere, from the base of the flat-bottom steering wheel to these shark's tooth switchgear features that really work on the centre console. The finishing touch on plusher models like this one is Bavarian bull's leather of a quality never before seen on a mainstream car. As for the practicalities, well, you might expect that Focus Class C4 chassis to limit things a bit when it comes to the amount of rear seat accommodation on offer. Actually, I can't think that it will. Though it's not Mondeo-like, of course, so you can't fit 3 fully sized adults in any comfort across the rear bench. There's no less space than you get in something like an Audi A4 or a BMW 3 Series, so as there, 2 adults will be quite comfortable, and a trio of kids probably very happy indeed. Nor does this come at the expense of boot space. which is large, practically shaped and accessed via a wide opening hatch. You've got 465 litres of it in a normal DS5, though that figure does fall to 328 litres in this hybrid 4 model. All those batteries do have to sit somewhere. Still, even here, you get a useful underfloor compartment, and there's the convenience of a ski hatch for longer items. Now, if all of that isn't enough, you can, of course, push forward the split folding rear bench to free up more space. Doing so will free up 1,288 litres in a normal DS5, and in this hybrid 4 model, 1,145 litres. Now, list pricing suggests that most DS5 models will be sold somewhere between £23,000 and £33,000, but the vast majority of those sales will be at the bottom end of that spectrum of the two conventional diesel-powered models. Now, most customers will be business buyers who will probably find it hard to justify the price premium and the running costs of the £26,000 THP 200 petrol model, but they may be tempted to stretch up to around £28,000 for the hybrid 4 diesel electric variant that I've got here, if budget allows. And up to 80% of them won't have owned a Citroen before. So, what brands will they be coming from? And what kind of market sector is this model really aimed at? Well, in answer, the French marketeers will talk of the way that this car will appeal to someone who wants something a bit different from a mainstream Mondeo or Insignia-sized family 5-door, but doesn't want the cost or ubiquity of a BMW 3 Series or Audi A4-like compact executive saloon. Volkswagen's Passat-based CC has already shown the market's readiness for such an approach, something this DS5 takes an important step further. You can certainly see its appeal on paper. If you're looking at one of the nicer Mondeo-sized medium-range models, say a Volkswagen Passat 2-litre TDI 170, for example, then a DS5, the comparable DS5 HDI 160, is more eye-catching, innovative, better equipped, and up to £1,500 cheaper. Make that up to £2,000 cheaper if you're looking at the swoopier, classier, more DS5-like Volkswagen CC. And your saving would be up to £4,000 if you were looking at a compact executive model with a supposedly classier badge, something like, say, a BMW 318D or an Audi A4 2-litre TDIe 163 PS. Perhaps an even closer match would be Audi's 5-door A5 Sportback with the same engine. The other big seller in the DS5 range will be the entry-level EHDI 110 diesel, a car that's around £1,000 less than its pokier diesel stablemate. Now, here the value proposition is almost as strong. Interesting cars in this category with exemplary running cost returns are almost all pricier. Of these, I'd single out Lexus C200H Hybrid and the Volvo S60 Drive ES115 PS, both of which are around £1,500 more expensive. Oh, and BMW's 316D, which is around £2,500 more. You've really got to want a DS5 with petrol power though. The THP 200 model does undercut a comparable Volkswagen CC GT 2-litre TSI, but the fact that it's the same money as a BMW 320i, and it's actually quite a lot more than a comparably powerful Volkswagen Passat 2-litre TSI, means that the appeal of this particular Citroen is likely to be limited. A more common sight on British roads will probably be the DS5 variant I've been driving here, the hybrid 4 diesel-electric 4-wheel drive variant. Now, its asking price of £28,000 does seem a bit high, but if you look at it, that's only about £1,000 more than the pokiest diesel versions of something Mondeo or Passat-like, and that's the difference you'd quickly recoup in hybrid-orientated tax savings. And this hybrid Citroen would actually save you a couple of £1,000s on comparably powerful conventional diesel variants of compact executive saloons like the Audi A4, the BMW 3 Series or the Mercedes C-Class, if you ordered them with the automatic gearbox that's standard with this Citroen. So it's well priced, you've got that, but is it also well equipped? Well, you be the judge. Even entry-level models come with daytime running lights, front fog lamps with cornering function, auto headlamps and wipers, electric folding mirrors, keyless entry and start, digital air conditioning, Bluetooth compatibility for your mobile phone, and an auto dimming rear view mirror. To this, most variants add niceties like this clever cockpit style glassworked roof with its 3 powered blinds. You also get rear parking sensors with a reversing camera on most models, and either part leather upholstery or full leather trim with this beautiful quilted watch strap like design. And most variants will have the My Way satellite navigation system with live traffic information and full European mapping. If that's not enough, then options include a massaging driver's seat and a 10-speaker Denon hi-fi system. Safety-wise, a 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating is justified by twin front, side and curtain airbags, along with the normal electronic assistance for braking, traction and stability control to try and ensure that you'll never have to use them. A lane departure warning system to stop dozy drivers from veering out of their lanes on the highway is optional. But if despite all of that you still manage to have a crash, then you'll be very grateful for Citroen's e-touch emergency and assistance system that's standard on most models. Now let me show you how it works. If you should break down, or heaven forbid if you should have an accident, then all you've got to do is press this little red SOS button up here that will alert the assistance services, who already know where you are from the car's GPS signal. Should you have had an accident and be incapacitated, then the emergency services will be alerted automatically. Every DS5 engine claims to be competitively frugal and clean. Now, even the dirtiest, the petrol THP 200 model, manages 155 grams per kilometre of CO2. The most frugal variant in the conventional range is the 110 brake horsepower EHDI diesel, which features an integrated micro-hybrid technology. That basically means it's got a stop and start system that'll cut the engine when you don't need it, when you're stuck in urban traffic or when you're waiting at the lights. Now, as a result of that, this particular entry-level variant is able to deliver 64.2 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and put out just 114 grams per kilometre of CO2 that'll help you with your tax return. If you go for the pokier 160 brake horsepower HDI diesel, then those figures fall to 57.5 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 129 grams per kilometre of CO2. The cleverest choice, though, if you can afford to make it, might just be the diesel-electric hybrid 4 model I've been driving here. Now, this is capable of returning up to 74.3 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and putting out as little as 99 grams per kilometre of CO2, provided you don't specify a large set of alloy wheels to fill those sculpted arches. What else? Insurance. It ranges between groups 18 and 28. And to keep maintenance costs down, there's a package Citroen calls Free Drive, which is a customer support package that can be tailored to include everything from normal servicing and garage visits to MOT testing, roadside breakdown and recovery, even replacements of consumable items like tyres. Now, whatever else a Citroen might be, it ought to look, to drive, to feel different. Cars of that kind established this French brand, the Traction Avant, the SM, and most of all, the Diesse. Cars we've seen little enough of from the marque in modern times, until Owners PSA finally allowed Citroen to be Citroen again, with a lineup of sporting DS models that have breathed fresh life into the franchise. The DS3 and the DS4 began the story. This DS5 won't complete it, but it's easily the most intriguing of the trio, with an exquisite feel matched by distinctive luxury, style and comfort. In 30 years' time, when Mondeos and Audi A4s are rusting in scrapyards, there'll probably be owners' clubs for models like this one. If that means nothing to you, then you probably won't get the point of the passion, the care, and the sheer charisma that makes this car what it is. It isn't perfect, with standards of ride and handling that can't approach the class leaders. But the really memorable Citroen models of the past never were perfect. Greatness rarely is. And make no mistake, this car is a great step forward for a brand that has at last rediscovered itself, found that different spirit, and not before time.